This video is going to be very personal, it's going to be very honest, and I will talk about my experience of being raw for years, then adding some cooked foods, and where I am with regards to raw or cooked now. Let's get right into it. Hi, it's Pretty Mama Yulia here from Rossum Healthy and welcome. Hope you're having a great day. Now, raw food, cooked food, I've tried both. So I'm going to share my personal experience with you. Now, a little bit of history first, just to put things into perspective. I switched to a raw food lifestyle together with my husband Paul back in the year of 2009. Before then, I've tried every single healing solution under the sun. I've tried the conventional approach, which I understood is all about drugs and drugging you. And then I moved to alternative approach. And within the alternative approach, I've tried every single supplement, every single tincture. I've seen every single naturopath. I've done every single healing therapy. And I've done cleansers on all levels. I've done juice fasts. I've done water fasts, I've done spiritual cleansing, and I've done all sorts of things to help myself heal. At the time, I was suffering from a severe chronic fatigue, severe. What I mean by that is my husband would come back from work at like 5, 6 in the evening, and he would see me in bed. I had zero energy, and it was so depressing, really was. On top of that, I had really bad digestive issues. I was on the verge of type 2 diabetes. I had hypoglycemia. I had to lie down. I would lie down after having just a bite of banana. This is how bad things were for me. I also had hormonal issues, I had weight issues, my emotions were all over the place, I had candida, really bad candida, and I was binging on food because I followed the anti-candida diet that restricted the consumption of carbohydrates. So hey, and then I learned about the raw food lifestyle, not just any old raw food diet. I've learned about a high fruit and low fat raw food diet, and I switched to it, jumped right in back in 2009, and hey, wow, didn't things start happening for me? Really did. So within days my candida was gone, and prior to that I was on an anti-candida diet for 2 years with no real results. My adrenal fatigue started to improve. I started to get much more energy. My depression was like gone. It was gone. I really started to feel this sense of great connection to everything, happiness and joy and energy. I would get out of bed and I would just start going around and walk to my local park, and I started to increasing my exercise, and hey, things were really happening for me. And so they were for Paul. Paul recovered from headaches and constant colds and other health issues that he had. So yoo-hoo, I understood that this is the right approach, and I stayed raw for 4 years. Not always 100%, but something like 99.9% raw. Perhaps I would have like some cooked meal once a year, and that's it. Otherwise, it was all raw. And then I got pregnant. And as soon as I got pregnant, without me knowing that I was pregnant at the time, I started to crave cooked food. And when I say crave cooked food, I'm actually really grateful that my cooked food cravings were healthy. What I was after was potatoes. That's something that I wanted to eat. I also craved broccoli or cauliflower cooked. And I also craved rice, white rice and grain in general. So I didn't know that I was pregnant, and I couldn't really understand what was happening. It was pretty intense for me at the time because I was all raw for 4 years, and all of a sudden it's like, I can't eat bananas. Where am I going to get my calories from? I was, doing all my athletic training and everything, and then I don't really feel like greens. And of course, when I don't eat greens, a lot of greens, I get cravings. So all these cravings started happening, and it's very common actually for ladies, even who were raw or who were all raw, to start experience cooked food desires during pregnancy. So when I found out that I was pregnant, I thought, okay, I'm going to allow myself to eat some cooked food. So I started to add some potatoes, mainly sweet potatoes. Sometimes I would have white potatoes. I also had some buckwheat on a rare occasion, and I would eat cooked food perhaps once, twice, maximum 3 times a week, just once a day. And that was how I went through my pregnancy. I noticed that whenever I started eating more cooked food, then I wouldn't be getting this amazing raw vibrancy that I was so used to. So I decided that, okay, I'll allow some cooked food, but I'll still keep it largely raw because I feel my best on raw. And when I gave birth, I was so hungry, breastfeeding for the first year and a half even. I just felt so hungry that sometimes I would get to a point where I understood that, I can't eat that much fat. So some days I would happily eat avocado and stay all raw. On other days, it was, I just don't feel like eating that much avocado fat today. So I would add some cooked food. And actually, again, it kind of worked. I can't say that it made me feel really bad. It just worked for me to get those extra calories that you need when you're breastfeeding and when you're pregnant as well, of course. And then something interesting happened. I got to a point where I understood that cooked food doesn't serve me anymore. And I just didn't feel good anymore eating it. So I thought, okay, well, it's time to start eating a lot more raw foods. And I went in a raw direction, and I would still eat cooked food maybe like once a week, twice a week maximum. And otherwise it was all raw. And the reason why I understood that I have to go in an all raw direction was because of the way I felt after eating cooked food. And it's just not as glorious for me as eating raw foods. I know there are a lot of people who went from an all raw diet to a cooked food diet. Some of them even eat cooked food every day for dinner. And I must say, I personally have no idea how you can do it. It's not for my body. I feel rubbish, and it's not something that I want to experience. I suffered for so many years prior to me going raw. Raw food lifestyle really liberated me from all the suffering, and going back to feeling rubbish is not the trade-off that I'm ready to make. At the same time, I must stress something, that my understanding of cooked food has changed. In the past, I would, perhaps see it as something that you need to move away from. Now I understand that you do need to eat a lot of raw foods in your diet, or even an all raw food diet if that's what works best for you. However, there are situations in life where you may want to include some cooked food. For example, for me, my current situation, I'm a breastfeeding mama. We are still not settled. We travel around the world, not crazy travelers. We usually settle in a place for like 3-6 months, and then we move to a different place. And I've got to be there for a toddler. And if I undereat on calories, so if I hold on to the idea of raw, which is fine by me, it's not a problem. It's not that I have I can't stop myself from eating cooked food and I don't have the willpower. It's not about that at all. However, if I hold on to raw in certain situations and I don't eat enough, I'm not a very good mother. And I must say, first, I feel hungry. When you're hungry, you're angry. You are more angst. And it's much more difficult for me to look after a toddler, Eleni, who is full on, lots of energy, running around. I need to be there for her, not only physically, but also mentally. I need to be there for her emotionally and on all levels. So, I know that I have to make intelligent decisions at certain stages in my life. And I believe life is all about making intelligent choices. So sometimes to eat cooked food, which will which is a compromise for me because I don't feel as good, is an option that I'm willing to make versus me under-eating and feeling even worse. So You know, when I undereat, I feel even worse. Now I'm breastfeeding. It just doesn't seem to work for me. For my adrenal glands, for my overall health, I just feel that I go very low. And I don't like going into that really low negative space when you just angst and you start to have so many fears. So sometimes this is a trade-off that I'm going to make. However, it's not something that I can do all the time. Yes, it's much easier to have cooked food in your house, because if you have sweet potatoes, if you have starches in your house, they're always there. They don't need to be ripened. You can have them in any amount. They're a good source of calories, and you know, they're much healthier, certainly much healthier than other foods that we see in this world. However, it's this feeling that they leave you with, and it is something that I just cannot compromise on. It's not something that I'm willing to compromise on. So yes, convenience and ease of maintaining a largely raw food lifestyle with some cooked food, yes, okay, I understand it. At the same time, for me to lose that inner freedom and that inner glory that I discovered ever since we went raw is not something that I can do. It's just not something that I can do. So I no longer can call myself an all raw foodist. However, at the same time, this is how I believe I am. You know, because most of my foods, most of what I eat in my diet is raw. And yes, on occasion I do include some cooked food, because I've explained the reasons. At this moment in time in my life, I just see it as something that is more sustainable for me in certain situations. However, on a day-to-day basis, no. It's going to be raw, it's going to be high fruit, and it's going to be plenty of greens as well. Some fats, okay, mostly fruit. So this is what works for me. And I know that through watching this video, you may be able to relate to me. I know some people will say, hey, what are you talking about? Just eat your starch and don't worry about it. And that's fine. That's what's worked for you, that's fine. However, I know for a fact that there are so many people out there who feel the difference between eating raw and eating cooked, and then they, you know, don't feel as good when they eat cooked, and maybe even their past health issues return. So if you're one of those people, I would strongly encourage you to follow your gut and to follow your heart and to go for that vibe that you really enjoy experiencing, this raw vibe. And I have to say, 100% raw feeling can only be experienced on a 100% raw diet. It's just, there's no getting around. It's for your skin, for your weight, for your mood, for your emotions. I believe that a fruit-based raw food lifestyle is best. I have a question for you. How do you feel about cooked food? So where are you? Do you think that cooked food is evil? You just got to cross it out of your diet and never ever look at it, which is fine, actually. It's fine, you know, if that's something that works for you. Or do you see it as some kind of, you know, a little compromise you're going to make? Or is it just okay for you to eat cooked food? You don't experience any difference between eating all raw and eating some cooked food in your diet? I'd love to find out, and also find out your understanding of cooked food. Please post your comments in the comments section underneath this video. Thanks very much for watching. Have a great day, eat sweet, keep fit, and we will see you again in our next video. Bye! Give raw a test because it makes you feel your best, get your health back and stay on track.